This is our portable microscope. It's a cheap microscope, so we don't have to worry too much about breaking it, but it has an expensive camera on the top. And the whole thing is battery powered, so we can really go into the middle of nowhere. So we've been out to the Great Salt Lake in Utah, and we've been down Bulby Potash Mine, which is up in Cleveland and Redcar, because we're interested in looking at how life can exist at extreme conditions. So the Great Salt Lake has extremely high levels of UV, ultraviolet radiation, so we're interested in how organisms have adapted to very high ultraviolet levels. And Bulby Potash Mine is an extremely salty environment, and salt is very harsh. Not many organisms can swim in salty environments, can live in salty environments, even plants and things like that have difficulty. So by going out into the field with an entirely battery-powered setup, we can really look at things out in the wild that we can't grow in the lab because we don't know how. So this gives us new opportunities to study swimming microorganisms and biophysics of all sorts of living things in the field. The things we're looking at, actually, in the top cupboard, the top of that fridge. So one of the things that we found in our expedition down the mine, there's a kind of cloudy solution here that's slightly pink. And this is a type of life known as archaea. They look a little bit like bacteria, but they were recently discovered in the 1970s to be from a completely different branch of the tree of life. We found these guys living down the salt mine. Very little is known about their biology, how they swim and all of these sorts of things. So it's kind of frontier stuff. We don't really know what species there are at the moment. We're looking at the genetics of that. The interesting thing about these species is that because they live in very harsh environments, there are very few species capable of surviving. So we can study them and study the interactions between species and start to see how one species can recycle products for a different species, and how they interact in the wild, I suppose, is the main key in a very simple system. There are related species of archaea. So the word archaea has sort of connotations of meaning something very old. And these extremophile organisms have been shifted to the fringes of life, if you like, by more successful things, maybe like bacteria and plants and animals and all the rest of it. So these archaea, these tiny things that look a bit like bacteria, they're kind of halfway in between a bacterium and a eukaryote, a plant or an animal, in terms of their chemistry. But they live only in extremely difficult environments are the only places left that these organisms can live. Archaea that live in the Great Salt Lake in Utah have evolved defense mechanisms against harsh UV illumination. And one of these is to develop proteins that shield them and that can absorb some of the energy and somehow defray the energy that's coming in and stop it from blowing their DNA apart and everything else. So the different cells often are very colourful because the proteins that come out inside them have to interact with light in some way, and that's kind of what we see with our eyes. We see a lot of different coloured cells in this.